Sounds good. Career games, including playoffs. You know, he started off, didn't miss any. Then he went through a funk where he missed a bunch. When he was hot, 39 played and 0 missed. But last year, 4 played and 13 missed. Drew, this is your squad, kind of. Your reaction?
I mean, I'll be excited that he's back. I do not expect him to do what he did 2 years ago. I think that's over for Christian McCaffrey. Like, I don't think we'll see. And he was Offensive Player of the Year, so that was a phenomenal season.
He's 28.
Yeah, he'll be 29 in July, I think. Yeah, he'll turn 29 soon. And he's been injury riddled his whole career. Like, that's really probably why he is not a certain Hall of Famer and maybe not close to a Hall of Famer. But I think he'll be good. Assuming he's healthy, they will have a good run game. They had a good run game last year, you know, with McCaffrey and Isaac Gurindo, last year's rookie. I think those two will make a productive run game. What he'll bring if he's healthy, he might be more valuable in this than running the football, is his receiving. Yes. That's what they didn't have last year out of the backfield. So I think they'll run the ball well, and if he can catch it out of the backfield and be a threat that way, then I think he'll bring a dynamic to their team that they'll need, and that'll help them reach the playoffs.
So this is one of the reasons that I feel so differently about you guys and the Niners, because so we all agree they have a soft schedule. I understand they have a soft schedule. That can help you get to the playoffs. That does not at all help you in the playoffs. And in some ways, some would argue that could hurt you in the playoffs if you're not, ready. Right. But the other, it'll be different this year rather than last year, is the injury component. And while I do not expect them to be as injured as they were last year, I also do not think they are nearly as talented as they were last year. On offense, they lost Debo. They lost both of McCaffrey's top 2 backups. They still have Gurno, but they lost Mitchell and Jordan Mason. And we now have McCaffrey at X% back, and we'll see. And on offense, I know you already were squeamish about their offensive line at times. They lost one of their best interior linemen, their starting left guard, and a guy who I think could be a superstar swing tackle, the left tackle that went to Kansas City. But that's only important because they have the oldest starting tackle in the league in Trent Williams. And on defense, they lost their entire defensive line aside from Nick Bosa, and in their back 7, their 3 best players not named Fred Warner, in Hufanga, Greenlaw, and Charvarius Ward. Now, those guys all dealt with injuries themselves. I understand it, but they're now
solid defensive coordinator.
Now that part is really good.
And you saw what Schefter reported today.
They brought in Bryce Huff,
who was great under Saleh.
And then kind of that was one of the weird Howie Roseman misses in Philly, but Howie's will be fine. And then there is, and this is not getting in a Purdy argument, the fact that one of the reasons the Purdy-Garoppolo stuff, one of the things I bring up a lot is that Garoppolo didn't have Christian McCaffrey. Purdy, with and without Christian McCaffrey, now we can just say, well, without McCaffrey was also without a bunch of guys. Again, the passer rating, Purdy's passer rating is never, there's none of these graphics show a terrible passer rating. It's always fine to excellent. But everything else goes from MVP front-runner type of numbers to not that great. And so all of that concerns me greatly, Brew, about the Niners, most notably the defensive losses, because every year they've been excellent. They have had a dominant defense.
Can I tell you what that all makes sense? It's hard for us to predict. It reminds me of the Bills. When we were all like the Bills defense, and we went through all these injuries. Veterans, and they were losing captains. So not only is there a skill void, there's a leadership void, and they came back and didn't miss a beat.
You're saying that about the Niners' offense or defense?
Defense.
But the Niners' defense wasn't very good last year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like it's been good every single year.
I thought that was more injuries based and maybe a little coordinator based.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say I think their coordinators. Last year was a problem. I think Saleh will be better. I think that graphic, what it shows, as much as I like Purdy, I'm not putting him in the Josh Allen, Joe Burrow category. And what it shows, when it just has to be him, Like, because you see the interception is what stands out.
Yep.
Like, versus with McCaffrey. And with McCaffrey, he's got the check downs and it's a security blanket. And then it's also not all on him. You see the yards, too.
Yards go up.
He's throwing it a lot more. So they need, look, last year showed us you need a good running game. You know, it's great to have. But what McCaffrey brings is the check downs and the catching it out of the
Can I just circle it back to the McCaffrey just to talk about the main topic? This is something, because I feel like Shanahan is playing it kind of cool. I want to bring up this quote from Matt Barrows in The Athletic. Here's what it is. But, he was talking about, like, guys aren't in pads and, you know, we're not going full speed. But, Christian McCaffrey looked electric on one of his runs Thursday, one where he hopped through the line of scrimmage before accelerating past the linebackers and bursting up the middle of the field. This whole article, if you read it on The Athletic, it is not like his best days are behind him. This is the old Christian McCaffrey, and you should be excited about this guy.
Well, what I will say is this. Guys, just because of, you know, weight training, nutrition, just everything is better. We are seeing a lot of guys play longer
test-wise,
at a higher level. So maybe 27, 28 used to be like, oh, he's about to start declining. Maybe he'll defy that.
So maybe. I guess the point that I would try to make is,
that looks pretty good.
Aside from McCaffrey, do they have any wow guys on offense anymore? Because
maybe Ayuk, maybe.
I would be worried about that one because Ayuk, no, because he's coming off a massive injury, and last year he wasn't very good before the injury.
No, he wasn't.
Like, you know, Kittle is, you know, a borderline Hall of, maybe he's not even borderline. He's a Hall of Famer.
I think
at worst borderline, if not already a Hall of Famer. But he is probably, you know, past his prime to a degree, and then it's just a team that used to have guys that I felt were elite all across the offense. I now look at it and say the only guy who I think right now has the ability to still be elite is the running back who in OTAs is not, you know, not at full
So you
strength.
don't think Ayuk could be elite?
No, I don't. Wow. I don't think Ayuk will be. I think that Ayuk coming off a massive injury after being paid, after seemingly not being that good last year before the injury, I don't think he'll be one of the 10 best receivers in football.
I think if they're healthy, I agree. They don't have what they had a few years ago when it seemed like they were almost like the Eagles. To some
all
degree.
pros, all
but I think if healthy, they got plenty.
All right, let's head to Dallas. New coach Brian Schottenheimer was asked about the development of new QB Joe Milton and opened it up to talk about the development of Dak, too. Are you buying that Dak is still developing?
Well, Brian Schottenheimer is right on the money. That sounds crazy. That's what he said. That sounds crazy. I mean, look, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, and when he says the Dak is still in the developmental phase, hopefully he means as far as the tweaks they're making, as far as them trying to get him on the same page with George Pickens and all of that. Like, he can certainly improve. Like, Schottenheimer's right on that. No quarterback is ever to the point where it's like you can't keep improving. All right, so I think with Dak, the most improvement has to be between the ears. Not getting tight in big moments. We've seen that in the playoffs. And Greg Jennings talked about this, throwing the ball to Pickens when it doesn't look like he's open. Because Pickens can go get those 50-50 balls at a high rate. And so Dak's never really done that, though. That would be improvement. And maybe that is what Schottenheimer's talking about. But 9 years in, this will be his 10th season. What is he, 32 years old, something like that? Been to the playoffs, all of that. Got the big money a few times, like has faced pressure. He is what he is. You can improve a little, but he is what he is.
Yeah, I think this is ridiculous. I think that we know exactly who Dak Prescott is. And I think that is a slightly undervalued regular season quarterback. And by that I mean I think that people don't give Dak quite enough credit for how, when healthy, how good he's been in the regular season throughout his career, really, for almost the entirety of it. Obviously, his rookie year, he was awesome. His last healthy year, he almost, he was top 5 MVP. And the majority of the years in between there, they were a winning team. Right. He had really good numbers. And I think people don't, ever talk about him like when we're talking about like the elite quarterbacks, and he's obviously not in that group of 4 you're talking about, but he's had a bunch of years where he's the best quarterback outside of that group, or a handful of years.
But it feels like when because early in his career they had Zeke, and they were a run team,
Sure.
and Zach was great at managing the game. But to me, the years they've had to put, kind of like I was talking about Purdy, they have to put it on his shoulders and like, Dak, you're the show. That's when they aren't that good.
Except
now,
2 years
they
ago.
won 12 games a couple years ago, but then we saw in the playoffs.
Well, that was the second part of this. Well, that's what I was going to say. Where I think he is who he is. Where I think he's a pretty damn good regular season quarterback, who now has a pretty long history of getting a little tight in big spots. Not like full-blown meltdowns every time, but I said it to you. I remember coming in after the Packer playoff game, that on the first drive, you just saw Dak's eyes.
Yeah.
And he looked like, uh-oh. And now maybe it was prescient because it was about to be uh-oh, but it wasn't yet. And so I think that I don't think there are many quarterbacks who in their early 30s who have been starters throughout take some massive leap. You know what I mean? I agree. No. You can get a little bit better or whatever it is.
A guy that was like a flop.
Right.
Like
or a
guy,
guy,
or Gino,
one of your
somebody.
favorites, Rich Gannon, who didn't really have an opportunity, and then all of a sudden it showed the world. But if you have 160 starts under your belt, like, are you going to all of a sudden unlock something new? I don't think so.
It'd be nice if we got back to MVP type Dak numbers. 36 touchdowns, 9 interceptions.
Oh, the 2022? Yeah, 2 years ago, absolutely. The problem is that year then ran into the single worst moment of his career, that playoff game against the Packers.
Yep.
That wasn't on him.
What do you mean?
No.
He's throwing pick sixes.
A little bit of defense, too. A little bit of defense.
Defense was bad, too, but he didn't help.
No,
he didn't help. Then he came along
and
later.
Lamb was upset immediately in that game.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.